So in this video, we're going to look at another method of bringing spatial or GIS information and map information into Rhino and Grasshopper. In this case, we don't have to go through the process of using an ArcGIS or QGIS software. We can actually just bring that information directly from the specific website and file into Rhino and Grasshopper. So it's a little more of a simpler workflow process. You will, again, need a specific plugin for Grasshopper. In this case, it's going to be called Elk. Let me go ahead and upload that. And what we're going to be using is OpenStreetMap. So openstreetmap.org. This will give you this information. And let me go ahead and search for this. So we're looking for elk. So from Food for Rhino, you will be downloading this plugin, and just try to download the latest version. They haven't really done an update since 2013, so we should be okay. So here we see what we have at OpenStreetMap. I'm going to zoom into the area of our site. So in this case, we're going to be up in Beatty. If it's easier, you can always change the layer type. Let's see if I can find a better one. I think it's so Springdale, Hot Springs, Beatty. So the site is right around here, I believe. Yep, so here I just happen to know that this is the area. If I look for standard, or we can start to see the site. So in this case, you don't have to worry about, we can't really bring in that same area of interest that we had for the previous one, but we can still at least make sure to line things up as best as possible in Rhino. So from here, I know that my site is pretty extensive. It's pretty large, so I'm going to do manually select an area. And I just want to make sure that I cover enough of the property. So that should be plenty. Plenty of reference. We can see we've got the actual highway, some of these dirt roads. Those should be able to match up pretty nicely with the aerial image as well. So from here now, I can just go ahead and hit export. We'll do, again, 7J Ranch demo, so I can differ from the last one. Okay, and that's going to give us our OSM file. So from Rhino here, we're going to go to our plugin, which is near the end, so extra, so elk. And this, I don't know why it's called elk 2, even though it's on the website just called elks, but it is what it is. So I'm going to use the OSM data. Then I'm also going to use this location data, so the one with the antlers, and then this one that looks like a street grid. So it's asking for that file, so I'm going to go to parameters, primitive, file path, set one file path, go to my downloads that I just did. Okay, so here we can just plug this OSM into here. The next thing it's going to ask for is the file. So it's pretty simple in terms of a plugin that works. By default, it's going to just show the building. So if I right click on this, you can see that the feature type that it's looking for is building. So think about that map with OpenStreetMaps is that there's a lot of different layers of information. This allows us to filter those out. So instead of buildings, let's start off with highway. Let's see, there we go. So now we're at the scale. So now we got all these points. So from these points, you can see that there's the actual points and then there's the actual feature information. So if you're actually interested in what these points are classified as, we can see that it's highway. See what some of these other service roads. So a lot of these are most likely going to be considered service roads. And then they even have, sometimes they actually have the name. So Bombing Range Road, that's interesting. But anyways, let's go to, now we want to actually see these as lines instead of just points. So I'm going to go to curve. I'm going to do, in this case, polyline, since these seem pretty dense. So I'm just going to drag that into there. I'll turn this off. Now we can see our actual road map. So now I can basically just kind of continue to copy and paste this one and just each time change the feature. So you'll see there's some good ones in here. So let's try natural. Nope, I thought there's, oh, I guess it's turned off, right? So this one's is actually showing where all those pools are. So I'll use the interpolated curve, so it maybe rounds them out a little bit more. So this starts mapping out the different ponds at the top, this little watering hole there, and also this one near the bottom of our site. So just kind of so you understand what I'm referring to, if I look at this from the previous video, there's a watering hole down here. I think it's this one that it's showing. There's this kind of intermittent one right there, which gets mapped out, and then there's these two that are getting mapped out as well, okay? So those are kind of the things you can use as reference to match things up. So it's kind of one of those things where you just want to go through this process of looking at all the different feature types. There's a great one if you look at the waterway, how detailed that gets. So now we got this crazy waterway system too. And if I look at, I'm not sure how they classify, whether these are, so some get labeled as, again, the Amargosa River, whether it's seasonal, what type of waterway it is. So you can actually use a lot of this information. Unfortunately, you can see that the naming or the feature names don't always match up. So in this case, natural is 0, and these other ones, it's intermittent is list item 0. So it's a little bit hard to kind of parse out the information, but it's good to know if it's got that list item as intermittent, which is the majority of these, you can actually indicate it as either maybe like a dashed or solid. So let's try that real quick. So unfortunately, there's only really one. So this list first item, which happens to be, oops, let's flip this. So I flip that and then look at it. So it's actually looking at this guy, right? So unfortunately, that's the only one that's not showing up. So what I'm going to do in order to get this to work well, I'm going to call that index or remove it. Unfortunately, I don't know why, but it actually asked for that index item instead of just defaulting like the other one. So now I can see that I've got all these other systems. And what's good is I can actually do that same process. Oops, then let's undo that because that's going to just connect them all, and then I can flip it back. And that way I can actually repeat this process for my labels. So now we shouldn't have to worry about seeing that. Hopefully now 0 is the intermittent for all of them. Okay. So now what we can do, again, since it's just text data, kind of like what you use the dispatch to look for a certain numeric thing, we can do something similar with text information. So in this case, we'll do match text. So text to match, pattern, regular. Let's try just dealing with these ones. So I'm going to bring in text here. And we just have to make sure we pretty much copy this information exactly. So intermittent. Yeah, I did put the colon there. So let's, now looks like make like things like even spacing will also affect it. So let's try it. So this gives us our true and false Boolean. Let's just see if it is actually working. So if I want, I could actually even, let's do this. Let's filter it down one more time. Okay, so now I'm just looking at intermittent, yes. So I'll do the same thing. This goes into here. So now I just know if it's true or false. So there is a couple, so let's try to make sure just to validate it. So I did see a false just briefly in there. So there's not a lot of permanent water systems. If I flatten these, that might also help too. So I mean, there's not a lot of different variations, so maybe that's not actually the one you want to use. So let's see, was there another indicator that might have a little more fluctuation? So here's again one of those examples. Maybe, no, so intermin, the name, so whether it's a river. And there might just not be a whole lot of variation, so you might just want to classify them all as intermittent. Yeah, like I said, it'd be nice if there's a little more variation, but in this case, they're all pretty much classified the same. So yeah, that just kind of makes it a little bit easier for you. So you can continue to go through this process of filtering things out, looking at all the different type of features that gets included in this, and then map it from there. So the key is again to kind of have some type of corresponding, the base file, in this case maybe using a roadway to match everything. So yeah, so that's a pretty quick, easy introductory to using OpenStreetMaps with Elk and Grasshopper.